Hey everyone, it's Ten Types, and Pitch Black is right around the corner, releasing today or tomorrow or something like that. And honestly, the set is super exciting and going to have some changes on the metagame. If you look at the metagame from recent expansions, we can see that looking at online tournaments, which is, I'd say, relatively similar to the meta you'll find on like the ranked ladder. I don't know what the casual ladder or the casual standard metagame actually looks like. If you play that, I guess tell me. But anyways, we see that you see like My Hero Ninja and then also Bijo both in the top 10. And they're not top 10 power level decks, but they're top 10 plays. And then you look at Perfect Order, you see Mega Starmie, and you also see. Thought there was another new deck. Am I being silly? I don't know. The metagame changed a lot with rotation. The set Perfect Order had Mega Starmie, and okay, that's it. I mean, it had some other good cards, right? But in terms of new decks, it was just Mega Starmie there. But you see, like in Chaos Rising, Mega Starmie is still seeing some play, certainly falling off some though, and it's not super good. So we'll see inevitably some new decks see play that aren't super good. That's also partially why I'm including on this tier list decks that are new that aren't necessarily super good. I'm obviously ranking them here today and trying to be like as like kind of honest about the actual like power level of the decks as I can be. And as you can see here, the tier list is looking a little weird because, well, the tiers, they got S tier, they got B plus, B minus, and C tier. So normally it's S, A, B, C, D, and then maybe F tier, or maybe not even D tier. And I was like considering doing that. That's like a normal tier list thing. But then I was like, well, okay, yeah, spoiler, like not actually spoiler, let's be honest. Dragapult and S tier. I'll talk about it a little bit in a moment, but there's not too much to say that hasn't already been said. So Dragapult is like definitely the best deck in the game. And there's not a deck that's super close. Like, is there an A tier deck? Probably not, to be honest. Like, I don't think there's an A tier deck. So then you'd have that gap, and then B tier is like playable, certainly. C tier is like kind of playable. So if you're looking at decks that are seeing play in tournaments, it's not like every deck in a tournament is Dragapult or anything like that. So then all the other tier, like most of the other decks, are gonna end up in B tier. And then some of the decks that aren't super good are gonna end up in C tier. And I've done that in the past, and it doesn't end up being a super interesting tier list or useful tier list either. So I want to actually break them down into these tiers: B plus, B, and B minus, because B is like the decks that are decent. There are some decks that aren't in the tier list that might be in consideration for like like even like B tier, maybe something like Cynthia's, some of the Team Rocket decks. So there are some decks that aren't here, but for the most part, I think these are the best decks, and these are the most played decks in Japan and internationally, things like that. So, well, your favorite deck might not be here. It probably your most played deck or the most played decks probably are here. So, I do also need to talk about a few decks that I represented by some kind of weird Pokemon here. But regardless, let's talk about Dragapult. As I said, obviously still very good. It's been the best deck in the game for, since the rotation. It's presumably going to be the best deck until it rotates, because looking at, again, Pitch Black here, there is some stuff that kind of messes it with it, specifically looking at the Hide and Sneak deck. And that deck is pretty good against Dragapult, I suppose. I obviously haven't really played with it. I played Build and Battle, and one person played against me, and that's my only experience with it so far. And really get to see much of it there. So ultimately, Hide and Sneak is, I'll get to where I think it will be ranked, but it's certainly not good enough to dethrone Dragapult or anything like that, right? And some like other new stuff that hurts Dragapult is, I don't know, like there's two new trainers. There's the Dark Bell item, which is a disruptive item, which is pretty decent. I've heard some people say like it might even be the best card in the set, not because it's amazing, but some of the other cards aren't super good. Most of the cards, none of them are truly amazing there. And then you look at Rossinican Grunt. This card is another disruptive trainer here. It's a disruptive supporter, discarding an energy for your points active Pokemon, or from any other Pokemon, and you can only use it if you're knocked out last turn. It's actually good against Dragapult, and it's good with Dragapult. Again, probably the same thing with Dark Bell. I think Dark Bell is going to be a little better for Dragapult, for Sentient Grunt, a little better against Dragapult. But ultimately, I'd say that's, if you're, hoping Dragapult falls off a little, which, let's be honest, most people are, even if you play Dragapult, you're probably still hoping for that, then at best, I'd say like maybe it's a bit of a wash, but it's probably helping Dragapult there. And then again, there's like new psychic stuff and like stuff that kind of counters Dragapult. Supposed to blow him here. I'll just start talking about Hide and Sneak. You look at Banette, or sorry, you look at Dhelmise. I like when I made this tier list, I accidentally put Banette as the Pokemon, which is not the Pokemon to represent it, obviously. There, Dhelmise here has the attack Vengeful Anchor. If you're not familiar, it does 170 if you have 4 more Pokemon that just go with Hide and Sneak, and the Hide and Sneak ability actually protects you from Dragapult EX on the bench. Some people, when this was first revealed, were like, "Wow, this is crazy against Dragapult with this like awesome ability," and quite simply, that's like not the case, right? Banette and Shuppet, and then also the grass ones, Sinistcha and Poltergeist, they're just not super good attackers. They're not like terrible, but they're not that good. And Dhelmise is very good, legitimately. It's only early game. Technically, Spiritomb is late game. And essentially with like Sinistcha, kinda, but it's really rough to power up. And as far as I'm aware, in Japan, it's like not really seeing too much play because it's pretty rough. So pretty rough to play with, not so rough to play against, to be honest. But Dhelmise here is a very solid attacker. It can one-shot Meowth EX. I will mention that. If you're playing against Hide and Sneak, don't bench Meowth if you can avoid it. That's generally true. Like, don't bench Meowth if you can avoid it, just in general. But specifically here, it's pretty rough. Benching other Pokemon like Fez and Latias, it's fine there. But then you can obviously knock out Dragapult EX with weakness if you play Liz Clefairy EX down, which is useful. Theoretically, you have the ability to protect your bench as well, which could come up, I suppose. Those shouldn't be a huge thing. And so this is like nice against Dragapult, which is probably the best thing it has going for it. And I mean, quite simply, like 170 turn going second is very good as well. This deck definitely has some nice stuff going for it. I'm not going to deny that. And I also do think it is the best new deck from the set. That being said, it is like not that good in the late game. I mean, 170 damage just isn't amazing. Dragapult does 200 active, and that's not some crazy powerhouse. It also does spread and has an engine. But and like Dragapult, the deck is a powerhouse, but the Pokemon itself is not this like crazy raw power attacker. You look at like Mega Lucario, its first attack is probably closer to this than second attack. Its second attack is a pretty powerful attack. Its first attack is not that powerful. I'm trying to think of other comparisons. I'd say this is more of like a supercharged like Fan Rotom or Solrock than a I don't know, it's like in between those and these Pokemon that are, traditional main attackers hitting like the 200s, looking at Mega Lucario, Dragapult, Demon Rockets, Mewtwo, the attacks you're finding on N, Zoroark, Mars Grimmsnarl EX, I guess would be closer there, but that's paired with some spread stuff. So ultimately, the damage, just long story short, it isn't that good. It's not bad, and it's very efficient for what it does, but as the game goes on, you'll find diminishing returns there. So where this is going to rank, I will put it in. It's between B and B plus. I do think it is pretty good. I mean, again, it's very efficient, and while it is not amazing in terms of raw damage in the late game, it is still a single prizer. This requires you to theoretically commit more resources because you need to keep getting it back, but that's not like that hard to do, to be honest. I mean, it is just a basic Pokemon with one basic energy there. Could be a special energy and actually get some value from Telepathic Psychic. Not that much, but a little bit there. Overall, it's fine. I think fine means B tier here. Definitely a decent deck. One of the ones that's probably the most interesting to keep an eye out for in this metagame because it's a bit of an unknown factor and also I think has the most promise and in some sense the most possibility to be kind of a flop as well out of any of these decks here. Then we'll go on to let's just go Psychic single prize decks we'll do the ones that are not new now as well. So let's look at Alakazam. It's standard now, I suppose. Alakazam is certainly pretty solid. It's not like amazingly good, but it's all right. It's pretty linear, and that's fine, I suppose. Obviously, hand disruption can be rough for you. Various things can be rough for you, right? Let's be honest. It's a bit of a House of Cards deck, Glass Cannon deck. It's pretty sketchy, but it can be very good. It doesn't have weakness, which is kind of weird. Also, we see like more controlling stuff popping up in the deck. I haven't really played Alakazam since people have started playing that. I mean, I haven't played these control package is what I'll call it in Alakazam, but it is interesting to see adding some more depth to it. But the deck is okay, I would say. Not really much more than that, to be honest, though. Again, not like bad, but it's just a little linear. and your opponent can often take advantage of it. There are times when Alakazam legitimately just completely runs away with games. There's nothing your opponent can do about it. But I think most of the time, specifically with like better decks, Alakazam kind of gets like beaten up, especially by, you're looking at like Pult there. You look at matchups. Dragapult not looking the best there, which is pretty rough, and it's like on paper also kind of sketchy. So I'll put in B tier. I actually do think Hide Sneak's a little better. They're actually very different, despite both being single prize one energy psychic decks. Again, Alakazam's just kind of like all in deck. Dhelmise is this more safe deck, though they are both relatively linear. But they're both fine. V tier is okay, definitely, but neither one's crazy impressive. Then look at Slowking. This is obviously very different. Again, still a psychic single prize deck, but this deck here is obviously, you see like Mega Kangaskhan, which is a very high HP basic. Your opponent can really kind of pick you apart in different ways that are like take prizes. That they can prize map in any way they want, and then also your attack, like the deck's, I don't know if I'd say limited. It can do some crazy stuff certainly, but it can also fall apart, right? It can just kind of like whiff stuff. I would say quite a bit there. The energy cost is not 1, it is 2 here, unlike the other Pokemon we talked about, which can be a little, a little scary, I would say. It's definitely pretty good. Like when it sets up, it's I guess the best deck in the game, though it misses. I'm not, I haven't played too much Slowking, to be honest. I played it a little. I played against it some, and I would say it probably most like more times than not doesn't set up, but it obviously I mean it's so hit or miss, but again, when it like works, it's so good. So I think it can take comebacks. It doesn't need to like work the whole game. It just needs to work for a couple of turns, take big knockouts, and then take like big prize swings, or like knock out a bunch of basics or whatever, to put your opponent back a lot. There's a bunch of different things you can do that are really good with the deck. Overall, the deck is fine. I don't know if this one's also going to go in B tier. I almost want to put it above, but I don't think it necessarily belongs. I'm really unsure. I'm not gonna lie. Like going in, I was like, there's gonna be some decks in B plus tier. A lot of these decks might end up in B tier. We'll see, but I will also put this deck in B tier. I'll put it above the other two. I think it has more potential, but it's scary as well. Scary on both sides. Then we come to Slowbro. Slowbro is super sick. It's from the new set. You can only do the attack. Well, you can attack if you have cards in hand, but if you have no cards in hand, you do like reasonable damage, which is 210 for one psychic on stage 1. It's okay, to be honest. This is kind of similar to the Dhelmise, except it does less damage. Or sorry, it does more damage, but not that much more damage. It's on stage 1 there. It is, pushing into this range of, one-shotting a good amount of 2-prize basics, as in like most of them there, and obviously one-shot and Pult with weakness, but it's pretty clunky there. I love this deck. 100% my favorite deck from the new set. Certainly that I want to play. Or okay, it's actually not Slowking. I'm very excited for the Thievul. The Thievul isn't very good, but the Slowking is okay. I think actually pairing with the Festival Engine is quite good, and I suppose I'll talk about that deck next. But I'd say that this deck is it's in C tier, let's be honest. It's pretty bad. Well, it's not like bad. Though there will be times where you just straight up do nothing. There'll be times when you can like pop off and do something. But like when you pop off, it's like this is easier to get going than Slowking, but it's a lot worse. Like it's when it's going on its like highest, it's fine, and when it's not, which is a reasonable chunk of the time, it's doing nothing. So yeah, it's pretty rough there. It's not terrible though. It is fun, but it's okay. I do expect this deck. Well, I don't know. I was gonna say like I expect this deck to see play, in like like online tournaments and like online a lot, and just like in different play environments. But I don't know. People like to play new stuff. But again, this is. I mean, you can see the tier list here, and spoilers. I don't know if it's gonna be the worst of the new decks. It probably will be, and we have 4 here. So being the 4th best new deck from a set means you might not really get talked about too much. I think this deck is better than probably the 2nd best deck from perfect order. Maybe again, I'm not sure what that was. And then even maybe the second best stack. Well, I don't even know what how to rank the top two decks from Chaos Rising. I guess Mega Units is better, and either of them are amazing or terrible. But regardless, yeah, Slowbro here is fun, not great. And then we have, which I mentioned, Festival Lead. I said Festival Lead. I said did mean Festival Lead, but not with Festival Grounds. But Festival Lead with Festival Grounds, Tekken Twice obviously good. I will mention this gets a new card with the Gladians something. Don't remember the name of it. Like Last Stand or something. Final Battle. Yeah. So that card, I actually don't know the official translation. I mean, I think I literally like opened the card, but I don't remember the name of it. So regardless, Gladian's Final Battle or whatever is a nice little addition to the deck, allowing you to do. Honestly, like you can one-shot pull with that, which is kind of crazy. So a cool card. I think the deck's getting better. I don't think it's ascending into B plus here. Again, the difference between B plus, B, and B minus isn't huge by any means, but I want to be high in the deck, but you know, kind of like Alexander, it can fall apart. You can play Battle Cage or Protective Stadium, really. Well, I guess technically Battle or Festival Grounds is a protective stadium, but like let's be honest, it's not. And then kind of like, you know, Slowking, it can really pop off, and like Alexander as well, it can pop off, but also it can kind of whiff some. It's a bit hit or miss. Things that kind of topple over. I'd say all three of those decks in some ways are kind of similar. It's a bit of a spectrum there, where I'd say probably got Slowking. Although on one side you got Delmise, on the other side you got Diplin and Alexam in the middle somewhere there. But Festival Lead is a decent deck, and legitimately the Gladian supporter is making the deck substantially better as well. It's a card I wasn't really thinking about too much, but you do 80 more damage, and that's double. You need to have no cards in hand, but you can do it using the Thwackey engine. Thwackey is like legitimately an absurd engine, allowing you to search for a card every turn on a stage 1. You can use both of its ability. Like Pidgeot EX was solid. Theoretically, Thwackey is just like drastically better than it, and in the deck, it is realistically like a lot better than Pidgeot EX was. So you can get down to no cards in hand consistently, and this card is, you know, just really, I'd say, good for the deck. An extra 160 damage, essentially. Then we have, I guess, the other grass single prize deck, which is Crustle. Crustle was the only deck here that wasn't in, like, I didn't exactly have a specific threshold for plays to be considered here in different, like, events, but Crustle didn't really meet it, but I do think Crustle is pretty good. Honestly, like, the deck's good. Just quite simply, right? Like, it's able to wall stuff. I mean, you know, it does exactly what it says it does, and a lot of decks just can't like really deal with it too well, I suppose. I mean, like looking at the tier list right now, Crustle loses to all the decks except for Dragapult, I suppose, because they're all single prizes, because that's the way I did this tier list. I do think there will be more single prizes in the metagame, though, so I guess I'll leave it in B tier as well. I will put it actually at the top of B tier. Crustle is decent, definitely underrated because no one likes it, but yeah, it's a pretty good deck there. Then we got the other, or let's do the last single prize deck, Toucannon. Toucannon does 60 20 more for each bench Pokemon, and has an ability that lets it draw a card every turn. It's okay, I suppose, but I don't know, it's not a great deck. I'll put in C tier, I guess above Slowbro, or should it go in B minus? I think it should go in C tier. Realistically, it's not great. I'm not gonna lie. I think both Slowbro and Toucannon will be a bit forgotten. Honestly, Toucannon was a card that no one was really talking about before the set. I talked about it because it's weird for, well, check that video out if you haven't, and maybe at some point I'll make essentially part 3 to that video about the Legendary Beast trio. We're now, because currently we have, you know, there's a Legendary Beast with Suicune V, Entei V, and Raikou V, which aren't in standard. Then there's Lily's Clefairy EX, which is definitely a reference, and then Toucannon, which is also a reference, which is like super bizarre. Again, check that out if you haven't, and make sure you subscribe as well, and like as well. All this stuff helps me. But yeah, it's fine. If you don't know how this deck works, there's some like different builds. I'm like not, if you're playing like Alakazam with Toucannon or like something like that, I guess that's not Toucannon. Realistically, those decks aren't super good, and they're not that common either, so it doesn't really matter whether you count them or not. But I'd say like you're looking at Toucannon with Air Zero Underdepths, and then doing big damage with Toucannon, or like decent damage with Toucannon as a single prize stage 2, which usually aren't super good there, let's be honest, unless they're like super powerful like Alakazam, which Alakazam presumably draws you more cards than the Toucannon, especially counting the stage 1, and then also it's like doing more damage. So yeah, Alexander's just like way better than Toucan. They're not the same, but stage 2 single prize 1 energy, yeah, Alexander's way better. And then I guess we'll go to Mega Extra Drill here, the last new deck. Mega Extra Drill does essentially just like 330 for 5, 200 for 3, and then I guess 90 for 2. So this card here has, again, essentially 3 different attacks, but the main one you're using is the second one, which does 200 for 3 or 330 for 5, pairing it with Matang. I don't really like the deck, to be honest. I don't think it's super good. Maybe I'm just completely wrong about it. When I first saw it, I thought the card was terrible. And then it's like been seen play in Japan. I don't know if it's currently the top deck behind Polt in Japan. Again, it is new, so that's definitely going to like inflate it a little bit, but like I don't see it. I don't see May Extra being that good. I've heard people like what people have said about it and like why it's seeing play, and like I technically get it. Like I get what you're trying to do. It does seems like okay, but I feel like we see all these like expensive high damage Pokemon all the time, and they're just essentially never that good. And I just assume this is gonna be the same. Matang is not great. Matang has been played in the past and hasn't been very good. There was Matang Dialga, but Dialga V-Star had like honestly, Dialga V-Star's V-Star attack might be the best attack ever because it like takes an extra turn and does big damage. I mean, it is very expensive. I don't know exactly how good it is. It's a V-Star attack as well, so it's pretty hard to compare to other things, but it's very good. And then like its other attack was like fine, and Mega Extra seems fine. It almost seems too fair though. So I'm not. I don't really see it there. Speaking of too fair, I think my Lucario is also in that category of feeling a little too fair. Also, we see a lot of psychic stuff running around. Well, yes, this tier list kind of over exaggerates the amount of psychic because you see a lot of different psychic decks. They're going to be, I say realistically kind of split among the player base. Looking for these different single prize stacks. There still is a bunch of psychic. Also, Alexander like doesn't count for psychic for hitting Mega Lucario for weakness. It actually is probably, if anything, the other way around. But you look at like what Mega Lucario does, it's fine, I suppose. The damage is fine. The gusting and the draw is like pretty good. The support package is good, but Mega Lucario itself isn't that strong of a Pokemon. I definitely think it's better than Mega Extra Drill, but I'm going to put in B- tier as well. Again, the tier differences aren't huge here, but it's just not that impressive. Its ceiling's not that high. Its floor is relatively high. If you're looking at a deck with a lower ceiling, a higher floor is important. And its floor is like relatively high, but it's not amazing, right? So the deck is, I'd say, just a little. I've said this a little too fair, which is honestly true like a lot of the megas as well. Like yes, Mega Actual can do 350, but it's 330, but it's 5 energies. Like Mega Starmie, its second attack super meh. First attack it's okay, but just okay. I guess that's a little quote less fair, but it's not crazy or anything. Then we look at the rest of the decks here. We have this deck. This is I guess like okay, so this is basic box, slot box. Could include Ogerpon, could include Mechanics Con. It doesn't have to include necessarily any of those things. I decided to represent it using Liz Clefairy EX because I think that's the best representative. I don't really know, but that's the deck. It doesn't need to be Liz Clefairy EX being the main attacker. I guess it also includes Raging Bolt. I was like, should I include Raging Bolt? But like, there's a lot of overlap with Basic Box, and so long story short, it's Basic Box. So regardless, this deck is pretty good. This deck is B+. I'm like, it's just good. Is this the only B+ deck in the game? We'll see, I suppose. There's only 3 more left, but it's pretty, it's pretty good. It's versatile. It's able to beat Dragapult and do other stuff. I think it's a deck that people have been and are still figuring out, but like when it first was around, which we kind of saw with, I guess this was like pretty different, like Mega Absol, Mega Kangaskhan. That deck was kind of rough. And we've seen different iteration on the deck where it's like honestly really struggled at points, but yeah, I mean it's good. Toolbox decks are good when they can be used well. And when you see a clear top deck, it's good. And they just have like other Pokemon that are pretty solid. And even Liz Clefairy EX, which is a counter Pokemon, is a pretty solid attacker, especially pairing with like Liz Pearl. It gets really nice there. And yeah, I mean it's a pretty good Pokemon. And pretty good deck there. Then we have Enzoric EX. Enzoric is definitely pretty good. I don't really play this deck, and I play against it some, and it's like fine, but I don't know. I really wish I could. This is one of the decks I actually feel like maybe the least confident on ranking, which is kind of awkward. It's pretty good. It's definitely in. I guess it's probably in B tier though. I think somewhere in the higher end. I'm actually going to put it below the decks that are actually hit it for weakness there. Not because of weakness. This isn't a weakness thing, but because actually I think it hits all the decks below it for weakness as well. But the deck is pretty like versatile. It honestly does a lot of similar things to Dragapult, which is kind of funny. It obviously isn't as good as Dragapult, right? But it's a decent deck. Maybe I should put it even higher. I don't know. And ultimately, I feel like it just doesn't work some of the time in just like kind of weird random ways. So I feel like it should be higher, but I just don't have it higher. And there's the grass stuff as well, which is a bit of an issue there. Then speaking of grass, we got I have Meganium here. This is like Ogerpon, Meganium. Could include Arboliva. It could be Hydrapple there. It could even be like Megamuso if you want as well or whatever. Which, by the way, I was looking at like the community forums for live, which always a mistake, I suppose. But yeah, someone was like, "What's the worst Mega?" And someone was like, "Mega Venusaur," which was like the top comment. And then someone's like, "Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense." Like Mega Venusaur is definitely not the worst Mega. Like it's not great, but it's not terrible by any means. It's probably pretty average to be honest. It's not great certainly, but like I suppose of the ones that see play, it's kind of bad. But regardless, Mega Venusaur is not the best way to play Meganium. You're looking at realistically, you're going to be looking at here Hydrapple. I think Hydrapple's solid. Arbolive is like I think Arbolive is pretty bad. If you know my channel and my thoughts on that, I think it's pretty bad. But not like terrible bad, but just not very impressive. Overall, though, I mean, Meganium Ogerpon itself, that like basic combo. Until Ogerpon acts like it's a bit of like kind of draw paired with the energy acceleration, it works super smoothly. And Meganium is just like you do a good chunk of damage, so it's pretty good. It's not B plus tier. It's I guess below ends. I think it's below Slowking as well. I'll put it right above Alakazam, I think, somewhere in B tier. Like the more as like, I think it's pretty good, and then I kept moving it down, so we'll put it right around here. Again, these like decks in B tier are kind of close, but and then we get the last deck, Marnie's here. Marnie's is okay. It's seeing a good chunk of play in Japan right now. I don't think it's an amazing deck. It's a super versatile deck either. I mean, you have like some spread stuff, but they can kind of struggle to do damage as well. So I'd say it's kind of like bad Dragapult, to be honest. I don't know if that's a good comparison. Maybe it's a terrible comparison, but you're kind of doing a similar game plan. Theoretically, you're, I guess, a little faster, but the stuff you do is just so much worse. I mean, you like don't have a draw engine. Yeah, it's kind of rough. So I'm gonna put this deck in B- tier. It's not like terrible or anything. I'll put it between the two megas here, I suppose. Again, they are the same tier, so I don't think it matters too much. I might want to put it above Mega Lucario. I don't know. I don't think it matters too much, to be honest. There's a grass weakness thing, which again, I do think Festival Lead is going to be pretty good. I think that might be the most underrated deck, as you can like kind of see here. I think I have it as deck 4. Again, Dragapult is definitely going to be the best deck in the game, so it's going to be Dragapult and Dragapult and the Trash Can Friends, I guess. But definitely, you got some other decks that are decent, and the new set has some decent stuff. Again, the new decks of specifically Hide and Sneak, and I guess also Mega Extra are decent decks. Toucannon and Slowbro aren't that bad. Well, it looks like they're just terrible on this tier list. There are other decks like Cynthia's, and there are like lots of decks that are close to it. I'm just on this tier list because they don't play that much, because they're like mediocre and not super interesting, and then like not new. But yeah, you'll see these other decks that are new that are decent. There's even I really want to include Relicanth in this tier list. Relicanth is so sick, but also it's not great. Actually, you probably don't know because it's not that great. But regardless, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Also, sorry I was a little tired at recording this. I was going to say it is late when I'm recording this, which it is. And also, I'm just super tired. I might be a little sick right now. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Huge shout out to my YouTube members for supporting me. I got some really cool stuff coming up as well. Obviously, the big thing is the new set, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. And like and all that good stuff. But I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.